What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we are talking about our final subclass for the Fighter, which is bittersweet, right? It's exciting to be able to move on to Monk next week. But at the same time, you know, we've been on Fighter for a while, and so it's gonna be weird moving on to some other things. But let's be real, we're gonna be dipping into Fighter a lot in our builds as we go forward in this series, so we will mention it again many times. But for today, we are talking about the Samurai Fighter. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I think we can do it. I think this year is going to be a big year for D&D in one way or another, and we'll just have to see where that takes us together. And of course, make sure to share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Before we jump into today, I want to pose a question of the day for you all. So it's everywhere on the internet, right? About the 1.1 version of the OGL and just how badly it messes up third-party creators. I would definitely fall into this. Not that I make anywhere near enough money for it to affect me monetarily, but it could end up affecting me in the effect of, you know, something that I would create could be just taken and sold by Wizards of the Coast, and I get absolutely nothing for that. That could affect our very small channel, and that's something that's very real. I want to know your thoughts. Is it really bad, like everybody's saying? Is it not so bad and everybody needs to shut up? What do you think? There are plenty of great videos out there about talking about this subject. I'll link one in the description by Treant Monk. He does a really good job of going through this entire thing. I thought about making a video about it, but it's like, I don't know. It would just end up me being angry for like 30-45 minutes, and I figured you all didn't want to listen to that. So yeah, I'll let you listen to Treant Monk talk about it because he explains it in a really great way. But I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below and how you think it'll affect a channel even like ours, even with how small it is. I'm interested to see what you say down below. All right, doom and gloom out of the way. We are talking about the Samurai Fighter now, and we are not talking about any of that other stuff anymore, at least during this video. So the samurai is obviously a really cool archetype of fighter, obviously spurring from a long time ago in Japanese culture, but now it has been translated to something that can work in any culture in D&D. And this is just a really cool archetype. Of course, everyone, when you hear the word samurai, everyone has an image that comes to mind, right? There's a specific kind of armor, there's the katana, there's all these things that just really make up what a typical samurai is. It's interesting that this one doesn't really paint you into that corner and that you can be whatever you want to be. There isn't really a flavor that you have to emulate necessarily. This subclass definitely focuses a lot on the social aspect of fighters, which is one that a lot of fighters just ignore, so that it does make this very interesting and very different in that you're not just worried about smacking stuff. You actually have a personality. So that makes this one a little more versatile in that way. Is it as good as other fighters? Let's find out. At level 3, we get 2 features, and the first is bonus proficiency. So we gain proficiency in one skill of our choice of a list of 4: history, insight, performance, or persuasion, or we can learn one language of our choice. Now, these are not the worst stats in the world to be able to boost, and they do, of course, make sense with the flavor that we're going for here. Samurais, of course, are known for their honor, right? And the do not back down. You are fighting and you are going to die a martyr, or you are going to win. And those are your 2 choices, right? And so this is a way to either avoid combat, to learn more about your enemy so that you can succeed, so that you can read people and make sure that your enemies are telling the truth, or find out that someone is an enemy. But there's a lot of really cool stuff that goes with this. An alternate language, of course, means that you might be able to speak to someone that may have been an enemy, and maybe you can bring them to your side. There's all kinds of really cool ways that this works out. And so these are good skills, or you could take a language, all pretty good things. I've got to give this an 8 out of 10 overall. For a 3rd level feature, that's pretty good. I mean, anytime you're going to get a skill proficiency, I'm not really going to complain, because those can really go a long way and get you out of some really tough situations. Also at 3rd level, we get Fighting Spirit, and this is kind of the signature ability of the Samurai Fighter. So when you activate this as a bonus action, we can give ourselves advantage on all weapon attack rolls until the end of our turn. When we do this, we gain 5 temporary hit points, and that number increases at level 10 and level 15 in Fighter. We can use this feature 3 times per long rest. Now, obviously, gaining advantage for an entire turn is really, really good, especially once you get extra attack and action surge going all at once. That's 4 attacks, assuming you haven't done anything else crazy, all at advantage. Yeah, you're going to be hitting, and you're going to be hitting hard most of the time, and that's really, really good. And then of course you also get temporary HP, which is not something to overlook, and it does scale. Is it a ton of temporary HP? Not really, but it's just extra. The advantage on everything is already great, right? Because that's better than what barbarians get with reckless attack, because there's no downside to it. Yes, it's temporary, but I mean, so is reckless attack. Reckless attack you turn on and off whenever you want. Of course, you can do that as many times as you want, but there's a downside. This one has no downside. You're just limited to how many times you can do it. Now, of course, this was written in Xanathars before they started doing the whole proficiency bonus times per day on like almost everything. So I wish that this had been proficiency bonus times per day. But at the same time, I get why they didn't, because if you just take 3 levels of this and then go, say, barbarian the rest of the way, that could get a little ridiculous. Or go rogue the rest of the way, that could get a little ridiculous. And so I understand why they didn't do that. Overall, though, I think this is a 9 out of 10. This is a really great feature. I wish you could do it more, but I mean, you still can't discount how good this is with how many attacks fighters can make on a given turn. At level 7, you get Elegant Courtier, or Courtier, whatever. Either way, whenever you make a persuasion check, which is one of the skills that you could have taken proficiency with back at level 3, you get to add your wisdom modifier on top of your charisma modifier that is already added to it. That's pretty cool, right? And of course, you could be proficient with it as well, so your persuasion bonus is going to be huge. In addition to this, your self-control gives you proficiency in wisdom saving throws. And if you already have that proficiency, then you get intelligence or charisma instead. That's pretty great, actually. When you think about this, right, at first you're like, okay, just a bonus to persuasion checks, you're really persuasive, but like, you know, whatever, it's not a huge deal. But giving you proficiency in one of, if not the most commonly targeted saving throw in the game, that's pretty huge, actually. That's really, really good, both for combat and for outside of combat. Just being able to persuade people and being able to resist people messing with your mind or whatever wisdom saving throw targeting effect is coming after you. That's a really strong ability, to be honest. And if you already have wisdom saving throw proficiency, whether through resilient or whether through you started with a different class or something like that, then you can choose another mental saving throw. Now, obviously you would choose charisma in this case. Intelligence is basically useless, but I mean, still, that just means that wisdom, which is one of the best ones to have, is always going to be covered there. And that's really, really good. I'll be honest with you, I've got to give this a 10 out of 10. This is such a simple thing, but it's so good. It's so impactful to you, being able to kind of be the face, even if you don't have the best charisma in the world. You still have the ability to talk to people and try to convince them diplomatically, or just murder their entire family. Whichever way you want to do it. You're a fighter, so you can do that. But either way, this gives you a lot of really cool versatility that other people don't have. At level 10, we get Tireless Spirit. Very simple ability. If you roll initiative and do not have any fighting spirit left, you get 1 back. So this feature is rough, right? Because we get 1 back if we roll initiative when we don't have one. This is going to happen often, So, I mean, we're going to use this a decent amount, I would imagine, because we only have access to Fighting Spirit for 3 turns, 18 seconds per day, which seems dumb, but we have 18 seconds of use of this per day. And so this gives us another 6 seconds if we roll initiative 1 more time, or 2 more times, or however many times per day. Now, if you're having 2, 3, 4 times of having combat per day, you'll use this more. At your table, you may only do 1 combat per day, and if so, then you will not use this at all. So this will vary slightly by however many combats you do at your table. Typically you're going to only be doing 2 or 3 at most tables, but for this, it'll come into play. It just highlights the big weakness of this ability. Just the fact that you only get 3 turns per day, and this is like, oh look, you have a 4th turn or a 5th turn per day, but that means you get 1 shot at this, and you better make it count. So I don't know, it just makes Fighting Spirit look bad, which, I mean, I guess it has reasons to look that way, but I don't know, it just kind of highlights it. So I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Just 1 more turn's worth of this is not enough to make a huge difference in whatever combat you're in. At level 15, we get Rapid Strike, and this is a very interesting ability as well. The Samurai is just such a crazily written subclass, but it's just cool. So whenever we take the attack action and we have advantage on our attack, which of course we can grant ourselves by our Fighting Spirit, or if we just have it innately, then we can actually give up that advantage in order to make an additional weapon attack against that target as part of the same action. And we can only do this once per turn. Now, listen, this is really cool, actually, and here's why. This brings up the debate of why True Strike is one of the worst cantrips ever. This is why that spell is garbage, right? That spell allows you to use your action to give yourself advantage on the attack that you would make next turn. Why would you not just make 2 attacks, right? Because at worst, you only hit 1. I guess you could miss both, but it's like, you have the same chances, right? So why would you not make 2 attacks rather than just 1 at advantage? This lets you do that. Making more attacks is always better. And this just gives you an extra attack on top of all of the attacks that you already had, right? So you're at 15th level. So you've gotten another round of extra attack at this point, right? So you've got 3 attacks per attack action. So you attack 1, 2, and let's say you forego your advantage. 3, 4, action surge, 1, 2, 3. That's really, really good. And it's once per turn. So if you have advantage and can attack on not your turn, then this also will proc again. Obviously that's a little bit rarer, but it can happen. And so that's something to also keep in mind. 10 out of 10, right? This is amazing. Getting an extra attack on top of the stupid number of attacks that we can already take is only going to be a great thing. I love this feature. Finally, at 18th level, we get Strength Before Death, and this reminds me a lot of our Zealot Barbarian in a really good way. So with this, whenever we would drop to 0 hit points, then we actually can delay falling unconscious. We can actually then just immediately take an extra turn. Now, while we have these 0 hit points, we do still take our death saving throws as usual. And of course, 3 death saves still kill you, but you get an extra turn. And of course, this only goes once per long rest. We can do a lot in a turn. We can do a lot in a turn. And really, there aren't a ton of effects that are going to cause you to take a bunch of extra saving throws on your turn. Now, of course, you're level 18, right? You could be in a situation where when you hit somebody with a melee attack, it does damage to you in return, and that could cause death save fails. So you've got to be really careful about what type of enemy that you are fighting. But I'm hoping that if you have had time to drop to 0 hit points at level 18, you would know about such a capability at this point. right? Of course, there could be some kind of a reaction spell. There could be something that happens during your turn that causes you to take damage. And that's why you need that wording in there. But overall, it's worth it, right? You're at level 18. Who cares about dying at this point, right? Somebody can pick you up. I'm sure there are 6 different ways that you can be revived at level 18. Who cares, right? So I don't think you need to be worried about failing death saves. You're getting an extra turn to attack and action surge and give up advantage on one of those attacks and then attack an extra time and just basically give a big middle finger before you go down to whatever was about to knock you down. No matter what, I think you win here. So this is a really good feature. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It's really, really strong, and just having an extra turn is going to let you put yourself in a really, really good situation. So where do we land on the Samurai Fighter? This is a complicated one, right? Because I have ranked it generally high, but there's kind of a finesse to this, right? The really, really good features that really, really excite me are Rapid Strike, Strength Before Death, and Fighting Spirit. Those are the main ones, right? 2 of those 3 come at level 15 or later, when most people have stopped playing most characters. So it's hard to put a lot of weight into those really good features that come after people are not going to be playing anymore, right? So we have to kind of look at this from the 1 through 10 perspective, which is what most of the time I have to do. At least I give a little less weight to 15th and 18th level. Fighting Spirit is really good, but at the same time, you only get it 3 times per day, 3 turns per day, which is very limiting. Like I said, I really wish that this was proficiency bonus at least, right? Of course, you would start a little lower, but you would at least scale to have 4 at a decently early level, right? And I don't know, I just feel like that's a little bit low. I do like Elegant Courtier, whatever. I do like that feature, and giving you wisdom saving throw proficiency is going to go a long way. But it's tough, right? Because I really think that your real identity and your real power comes at 15th and later. And most people aren't going to be playing that late. It's hard, right? I really like Rapid Strike, especially because attacking twice without advantage is always going to be better than attacking with advantage, because you have the ability to hit twice, right? And one really cool thing about this is that you could use your first attack to shove the creature, right? And knock them prone. And then you basically just get that attack right back, because now they're prone, so you have advantage because they're knocked down in front of you. So you can still make the same number of attacks that you would have been able to make normally, right? And you don't have to use Fighting Spirit. There are plenty of ways to gain advantage on attacks in D&D as well, like the shove action is one, and of course, Fairy Fire is another by a friend. There are tons of ways to do this, and so it's hard, right? Because you could just as easily take something like casting darkness on yourself and having Devil Sight. That's something that works on a lot of characters, right? And that isn't limited to 3 times per day. That's limited to as long as you have the darkness spell active. And getting the darkness spell is really not that hard. So that also makes this a little bit difficult going forward. Overall, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It's hard, right? Because it's ultimately really relying on that 3rd level feature for most characters. Now, if you play this at 15th and 18th level, I think that this goes up to an 8 or 9. I really do. But I can't rely on that being the case at most tables, because I know that's not true most of the time. So that's the unfortunate part, right? So that's why it ranks this way. Now, it's still a passing grade. I don't think that this is a bad subclass at all. I don't think that this is an unfun subclass. I think you can have a blast with this, being a fighter that is also kind of the face, whether or not you have the best charisma. I still think this is cool, and I still recommend that you play one. Just realize that these really don't fully come online until late level. So what do you think of the Samurai Fighter and my ranking? Did I get it right? Is it too high, too low? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Later this week, we will be building one of these, and this will be our final fighter build of this series. And I'm very excited to bring you that. I've got a really cool build for you that I think you all will enjoy. And of course, make sure that this week you stay safe, stay healthy out there. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.